We have one scripture passage today that I'm going to be reading, and it comes from the New Testament letter to the Romans. So I'll be reading today Romans chapter 10, verses 1 through 13. 1 through 13. Listen as Paul writes, "Dear brothers and sisters, the longing of my heart and my prayer to God is for the people of Israel to be saved. I know what enthusiasm they have for God, but it is misdirected zeal. For they don't understand God's way of making people right with himself. Refusing to accept God's way, they cling to their own way of getting right with God by trying to keep the law. For Christ has already accomplished the purpose for which the law was given. As a result, all who believe in him are made right with God. For Moses writes that the law's way of making a person right with God requires obedience to all of its commands. But faith's way of getting right with God says, don't say in your heart who will go up to heaven to bring Christ down to earth, and don't say who will go to the place of the dead to bring Christ back to life again. In fact, it says the message is very close at hand. It is on your lips and in your heart. And that message is the very message about faith that we preach. If you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For it is by believing in your heart that you are made right with God. And it is by confessing with your mouth that you are saved. As the scriptures tell us, anyone who trusts in him will never be disgraced. Jew and Gentile are the same in this respect. They have the same Lord, who gives generously to all who call on him. For everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved." May God add his blessing to the reading of his holy word. This free grace idea is tough. If we're honest, it's really tough. Tough to get a handle on for us. We're so indoctrinated from the first day. We're so indoctrinated into putting our worth, basing our worth on how we're doing, what we're achieving, how we look, how we're accomplishing and growing. We're so used to basing our worth on these things. From first grade on, we're taught, and not just taught, we just are soaked in the idea of achieving and competing, being compared to others and testing and retested and retested and retested, ranked and rated with the continual question, how do I stack up? Where do I stand? What's my standing? And we compare it based on how we feel about others, how we see ourselves, how we see our brothers and sisters, our siblings. Sibling rivalry is war in the trenches, make no mistake. It's war in the trenches, and that's how we're taught. That's how we come to believe our standing. Have you heard I'm the black sheep of the family? Firmly believed it. Firmly believed it. And so my power came not in building up or being productive. My power came in bringing down the lofty any way I could. And I got good verbally with taking down that firstborn. I was good. And I learned that my standing was based on how I could position myself around and somehow to be equal to. I never thought I could be above, but I could be equal to my older brother. And I learned how to do it, and that way was finding little chinks in his armor, looking for all the ways that I thought he was being, hypocritical, or that he was being a fake. I wanted to think my brother was a fake. And he was getting all this attention, and he was getting all this popularity. I never got that. And he was getting good grades, and growing up, I never got that. I thought it was somehow trickery and fakery. And so I got good. I got real good at teasing my brother. And there are many a time when he chased me into a bathroom, which I learned that I needed to shut quickly and lock behind me to protect myself. I got at him, boy, and I loved doing it. And that gave me a sense of worth. Isn't it screwed up? Yes, it was. Yes, it was. And it took me till darn near 35 years old until I realized that my standing does not depend on my brother or anybody else for that matter. And it doesn't depend on me having to put myself, you know how you play basketball? You play basketball, some of you. You know how when you're shooting the ball and you're underneath the hoop, what do you have to do? What do you have to do to get that ball? You got to box people out, right? I've been elbowed in the face from being boxed out. You've got to push and tug and just jostle and get people out of your way. And we have that mentality about this is how you get your standing. This is how you make it in life. You overcome the people around you. And this is how we've kind of been indoctrinated. And we have this tremendous insecurity. You know, if somebody gets a promotion and we didn't get it, well, what's wrong with me? What did I do wrong? What's the deep flaw that I'm not getting? Or we start to build on our own, we build a case against ourselves because we have this insecurity about where we stand. And you don't know me, but I have issues. I've got problems. I'm the black sheep. I'm the second born. I have a whole list of taglines to explain why I couldn't be successful or be influential or fill in the blanks. Couldn't make it even at times. I felt like it wasn't even possible because I was basing my worth on this merit system and that it had to come from somehow being better than others or achieving more or getting more. We're just hungry for more and more and more to justify being in our shoes, taking up space. And there's this insecurity that just, so when God says, my grace is free, that is so hard for us to get in touch with. And so imagine Paul is writing to Paul, who was a devout Jewish leader, a Pharisee, always kept the rules. That's how Paul always stood out. Was known to persecute Christians because they didn't believe in keeping the rules. And Paul knew as a Jew, if you don't keep all these festivals and these rituals, and if you don't if you don't do all these things, observe the Sabbath perfectly, then you cannot be God's friend. And so Paul's writing this letter because he met Christ and he found out that that's not how you get good with God. No, that's not how God elevates us. And Paul's writing them and saying, leave the old system. You'll never make it. You'll never make it. And God wants to give you this grace. And guess what? It's not just for you. It's for the outsiders. Now that was a smack in the face to these people, to these Jews. And there Paul was saying, there's a new system in place. There's a new system. And, our status changes all the time when you're based on the merit system. I kind of want to demonstrate this, if you allow me to do that. I'm going to do that now. I'll be making things up. What I'm saying about you guys is all made up, all right? It's all pretend, all right? So imagine that I am giving out the rewards, okay? I have the tokens, and we live on the token system, all right? So, Bonnie, I heard that you were good to a stray animal, so you get a token, okay? And Kathy, I heard that you were good to 2 stray animals, so you get the blue token, okay? Mike, I heard that you observed all the speed limit rules the last few days, so that gets a blue token, okay? And Bonnie, I heard that on top of that, you said nice words about a loved one, and so that gives you a blue token. You see how this works, okay? Chase, I heard that you fixed a ladder for someone, so you get a white token, okay? And Lara, I heard that you helped somebody at school, so that gives you a token. You see how this works? Okay, I'm passing out tokens to everybody. And I go around and give you all tokens, because you've all done good things and great things. All right, but it works the other way too, right? Mike, I heard that you were bragging about your gutters, that you have better gutters than your neighbors do. So because you're mine were on the gutters, I need your token back. Thank you. You see how this works? So we're running around with all these ideas of what's the size of my stack, all right? How many tokens do I have? You know? And some days you feel like you're a wealthy man or a wealthy woman. You're just loaded because of all the good stuff and all the things that you've achieved and compliments you've been given and all that. There are other times when you feel like you don't have a token to your name. There's nothing there. It's all been spent. It's all been taken from you. You've lost it somehow by doing something terrible. And you feel empty. And today you're not worth the basket that the tokens come in. Right? This is how it can be if you base your life on the way we were indoctrinated since first grade. And we even think it works that way with God. We think that our value to Him is based on how much we've gotten done, how many hours we've worked, how many good things we've done for God, how much we've contributed. And if we're not careful, this becomes our worth. We are our tokens. That's who we are. Nothing more. And thank God I've got something to give to Him, but unfortunately because of our insecurity and because of the wrong that we sometimes do and our own nature that sometimes chooses the wrong, sometimes it's like, God, I got nothing. Why are you after me? What do you want from me? I got nothing. And you see how this works. If we're not careful, we can withhold, we can shrivel, we can stop trying, we can give up the notion that God cares about us, we can climb into a hole because we got nothing. And we're done playing the game. You know, I grew up a Catholic, being solidly taught, at least from my viewpoint as a child, being solidly taught that I was constantly letting God down. And you know, we need to know this, that we can't keep the law, we are letting God down. But I was also taught that I could get tokens by saying certain prayers, repeating certain prayers in a certain order, by confessing to the priest. I could get tokens back, or I could keep a running tally that at least kept me in the game, right? But I got tired of playing the game. I got tired of playing the token system. It didn't work for me. And, you know, being a second son, already the black sheep, it's like, I'm not doing this anymore. If I'm bad, then I'll just enjoy being bad. I'll just enjoy my badness. And I got tired of it. I'll seek whatever relief I can find in my miserable life, rather than seeking the living water that could fill me and make me a new person. I had no hope in becoming a new person. So we gotta be very careful with this token system. It stinks. It's a stinky system that God tries to help us escape from. He wants us to escape from this system. And I hope that's becoming clear. You know, when Paul said we get it wrong when we strive to earn God's love, he called this misdirected zeal. You know, when our zeal is in trying to clean up our act or impress God. That's misdirected zeal, is what he called it. Not understanding God's way of making people right. Paul said it's not by keeping the laws and good behavior that saves us. It's belief in Jesus and what he accomplished on that cross. Paul went on to say that our trying to earn our keep with God is offensive to God. Because it's like saying he didn't need to come. I don't need him. I don't need anything he has to give me because I'm my own light. I'm my own righteousness. Only Christ allows God to declare us as forgiven and cleansed. Righteousness by Christ. Paul made it clear that we must surrender to this system. God, by his own arm, saved us by sending us Jesus. That's the system. That's the offer. Nothing else. Nothing in my hands I bring, only to the cross I cling. Nothing. We don't like that because we don't like to feel like we're that dependent on God. We don't like to feel like we need that much help and that we have really nothing to offer. But we've got everything to offer. We've got our lives to offer. And we've got all the love that he has to give us, to give to others. This is Jesus' job to make us right, not ours. It's grace alone. It's a hard pill to swallow because it goes against our system of fair play, of what's fair, right? We find ourselves, when somebody else gets the blessing, we find ourselves half the time saying, well, that's not fair. That's not fair. It's like when a young, struggling employee gets moved up in a promotion and gets the best office and the highest promotion just because he knows the boss, and it turns out the boss is his daddy. It's like that. It's like when an evildoer who spent his life harming others but is pardoned at the last second by the governor just because the governor has taken a liking to him. This makes no sense. This can't be right, we say. It's like the late-coming employee who shows up at the end of his 8-hour day and he gets paid the same as the guy who was there all day working his behind off. And we say to ourselves, this is not right. Cannot be right. It's like the brother who stayed loyal to his dad, not getting a feast, but his rebellious brother who returns home gets a special feast thrown by the father. And by the way, these last two examples are straight from the Bible. To us, this is an outrage. This is ridiculous. This is scandalous. It smells bad. It isn't fair. That's the way we think. That's the way we think. It's scandalous faith, scandalous grace, I should say. God is loving in a scandalous way, and we benefit if we just accept it. It's scandalous, but it's God's way. It's God's way of doing it. Doesn't he get to decide? Doesn't he get to make the rules? God says, not on the merit system, but saved by grace. Not on the merit system. Our standing is not based on our achievement, our work, or our efforts. Our standing, our salvation is a free gift to all who believe. As Paul said, if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For it is by believing in your heart that you are made right with God, and it is by confessing with your mouth that you are saved. For everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. It's our gratitude for God's love that drives us to do things, right? It's our gratitude that drives us to want to be better and to obey the law and to try as best we can to keep the laws. It's our love and our gratitude that drives us to do that. We do a good job of that compared to how we do just based on fear and guilt and wanting to be better than others. We do much better when we do this out of love and thankfulness to God. We are better law keepers. We are made internally to be law keepers, to seek to do the law, right? Our heart changes. So in the end, it's better. This system is much better when the Bible's in our hearts as opposed to being beat on. We're being beat on the heads by others or being guilt-ridden by others. We don't do so well with that. We don't do so well. We want to please God because we accept his free gift and we're grateful for the grace that he gives without charge. That's the system we're on as Christians, the new way of doing things. Saved by grace and grace alone. Let's take a few moments and be in prayer at this time.